enforcement personnel who had access to FirstNet or Frontline on July 13th report issues with their cell phones? So Frontline or FirstNet people, did they have any issues?
To my knowledge, no, they worked the entire time. My pictures were a little bit slower to send, but they did go through.
Yeah. Which members of local law enforcement can access Frontline or FirstNet? Do local law enforcement departments provide those?
I do not know. So mine is actually my personal phone that I set up through FirstNet.
Right, so you have to pay for that yourself?
Yes.
To have priority to make sure you can communicate?
Yes.
Right, okay. At the July 13th event, a local sniper sent pictures of the shooter to other local law enforcement officers approximately 45 minutes before the shooting at 5:34 p.m. While some officers received those pictures, several law enforcement officers reported that they did not receive those photos of Crooks due to connection issues. Sergeant Lentz, our understanding is that everyone who had FirstNet was able to receive the pictures of Crooks. Is it your understanding as well?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, were the local law enforcement officers on the ground in Butler on July 13th that had FirstNet or Frontline, were any of those unable to receive it?
Not that I've heard.
Okay. Would all local law enforcement having access to FirstNet or Frontline help improve communication issues at major events, in your opinion?
Yes. It's long been known that when you get a very, very large crowd of people, the cell system can only handle so much. At the 2020 rally, there was actually a FirstNet truck, I believe, that had been driven there and deployed as an additional cell tower. And I do not believe that occurred at this rally. But it does seem that the FirstNet is a very, very good option to make sure we have cell phone capabilities.
Right. So I just want to think about it, right? So the 9/11 Commission recognized this in 2001. We created a solution, and yet it's 2024, and we're still not implementing that solution at the highest levels of our security agencies to keep former presidents safe, for law enforcement on the ground who are a part of that, for Secret Service who is a part of that. And so, you know, we don't have to sit here and come up with a solution. They did it in 2001. Why has it taken so long to implement the solution? And so, you know, the chairman said something that's totally true. People in this country absolutely should have a right to go to a rally, right, and listen to their president or candidate of choice and come home. By the way, parents should have the right to send their kids to school in this country, right, and for them to come home as well. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. Now recognize the Chairman of Homeland Security, Chairman Green. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you and the ranking member for your leadership on setting up this hearing today in this investigation, and thank you to the witnesses. Colonel Christopher Paris, I think the commander of the overall Pennsylvania State Police, testified before the Committee on Homeland Security a few weeks after the events in Butler and a few weeks before this task force was formed, that a photo was taken of the shooter with a rangefinder actually actively ranging the podium. He further testified that that image was texted to a PSP officer in the control center and showed to the U.S. Secret Service approximately 10 minutes before President Trump took the stage. Can you, Lieutenant Harold, confirm that that testimony is accurate to your understanding?
I have no knowledge of the image prior to or during the day of July 13th, so I can't answer to that. Like if it came up in the investigation, I had nothing to, or I have no working knowledge of the investigation, just the events that took place that day on the 13th.
You were on the ground there that day. So
yes, sir.
This was reported to us in committee and under oath. I mean, you know Christopher Paris, good man.
I do.
Your boss.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan, you've been made aware, I know my colleague, Mr. Walsh, talked about the intel. Apparently, the additional intel was received about 21 days before the event. It was reported, as I understand it, to the Trump detail 7 days before the event. Considering this heightened intelligence, do you think allowing President Trump to take the stage after an image of an individual ranging the podium with an optical rangefinder is received 10 minutes before was a good idea or a bad decision?
Well, I don't know if the detail leader was told about that image being received. Had the detail leader been told about that?
PSP guy says it was shown by, on a text, the phone said, here, this is the image of the guy, somebody ranging the target.
Yes, Mr. Green, I understand that, but that may have been someone in the security room, and that wasn't transmitted to the detail leader. I don't know if it was.
So I'm just asking, well, let me ask this question. Is it, like, if any Secret Service agent is aware of something like that, can any Secret Service agent go, hey, whoa, stop, we don't need to let the president on the stage?
Absolutely.
Okay, that
Absolutely.
didn't happen. Okay.
But primarily it would be the detail leader's responsibility, but any agent could step in if she thinks it's an immediate emergency.
Okay, good. Commander Lentz, you mentioned that the local law enforcement activity fired the first shot. Is that correct? You mentioned maybe that he withdrew. Do you think he was hit, or do you think he just sort of ducked because he was taking incoming fire?
In speaking with the officer that fired that shot, he's very confident that his round was on target. And the way he described him, it wasn't a duck.
Is the doctor still available and online?
Yes, I am.
Were there 2 bullet wounds in this individual, or just one, the headshot?
No, it was just the one.
Okay. I just found it interesting that when we were briefed by the FBI, we didn't get told about that shot taken by the local guys. Lieutenant Harrell, did Secret Service, the shooter apparently had the gun stored somewhere, as I understand it, near the AGR building. Did the Secret Service use canine teams to clear the site prior to the event that day that you're aware of?
Is that a question for me, sir?
Lentz, or you, sir, Commander Lentz, or?
I'm not aware of any canines clearing the area of the AGR International property. We were told that canine units would clear the farm show ground. So to me, I'm thinking inside the fence line at, I believe, 1100 hours that day.
Are you aware that happened, either of you, that did occur? You saw
that my officers did report that there were dog teams in the same barn as that.
Okay, very good. So you were testifying earlier, Commander Lentz. Did I understand you correctly that you're the leader of the local law enforcement on the ground there, right?
Just the tactical units.
Okay, the tactical units. The first time you talked to Secret Service that day was when you needed them and you called them?
Correct.
Did anybody check in with you to make sure your guys were in the right place for the event?
They did not check in with me, but
They did not. Let me make sure I got this correct. The U.S. Secret Service is about to pull a security detail around a president at an event with a lot of people and a lot of risk, with a heightened risk from an international threat, and they didn't even check in with you to make sure your guys were in place and ready to go?
Correct, not with me.
And you're the leader of one of the tactical units covering this and had responsibilities on this site?
Yes.
I find that unbelievable. Let me ask this question to both you guys, Commander and Lieutenant. What authorities did the U.S. Secret Service give you in the event that you saw someone with a weapon, or, I mean, did you have first shoot authority, and was that very clear what you were to do under the circumstances if you saw an active threat like that?
They didn't provide any guidance to us. However, our standing orders with our team.
So you were using your protocols for that? Okay.
Correct. If it's a deadly threat, they do not need permission. They're permitted to immediately take action.
What about a step back from that? You got a guy like with an optical rangefinder ranging a target. Did they give you any directions on what to do in those circumstances?
They did not.
How about you, Lieutenant Harrell?
Yeah, I think the same thing with protocol. If we saw a threat, we would engage. When it comes to the rangefinder, I had no knowledge of that day of. During the same time frame, we were investigating 2 additional suspicious people that were on the fence line. And earlier when I said I was behind the stage, I had those 2 people in sight, and I was trying to get troopers to the location there for post 5, because he had saw what he reported as suspicious activity on the fence line. So we were also looking at that hearing the time frame, like about the same time that this information was coming in with for Crooks as well.
Well, I'll end right now just by saying thank you for the work that you do. We as veterans deeply appreciate the needle in the haystack that you guys have to live to find, and thank you for what you do. Really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman Green. Now recognize the gentleman from Maryland, Representative Ivey, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to join in expressing my gratitude to all of you, not only for being here, but the service that you provided to your communities and to the country. Wanted to follow up on a couple of things. One on the communications front. The FirstNet system, let me ask, because I don't know that Mr. Sullivan, you talked about FirstNet at all. Is Secret Service able to access FirstNet as well?
I don't know, Mr. Ivey. I don't know the answer to that.
All right. Do any of you know if on the day of July 13th, the Secret Service was connected to FirstNet at all?
I have no information of that, if they
Okay.
were or not.
In the walkthrough and the meetings prior to July 13th, were there any discussions about how communications would be had on the day of July 13th?
I know that Secret Service, when the county had referenced their mobile command post on Monday. So I think that's how that was integrated into the rally. So during Thursday meetings with Secret Service, the command post was established at the Farm Show office, the main office there coming through the main gate. So I knew that they were going to have, or Secret Service said they were going to have their representative there, and that's where we opted to put our sergeant and the command post with Secret Service. There were some communications with portables and the radios, but nothing with FirstNet cell phones.
All right, so we had communications with, Commander, you mentioned, I forget the name of the channel, but one of the channels that you used, right? You had people using cell phones, I guess for direct calls and for text communications?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and then you had multiple other radio channels that were being used.
Yes.
Is that right? And some people were using FirstNet and some weren't. Is that all fair?
Correct, yes.
All right, and then you had two separate command posts or communication that had communications going through them. Is that right?
Yes.
So I saw a series of text messages, I think related to spotting the man on the roof who ended up being Crooks. And it was texted because I guess the person who sent the text was uncertain that the radio communications would get to who they had to get to. So were you aware, Commander, that the text messages were being sent on July 13th?
I definitely knew text messages were being sent. In fact, that's how I got the picture of who we were looking for, so that I could then forward that to the state police sergeant that was in the Secret Service Command Center.
All right, and on July 13th, was there a way to relay that photo directly to the Secret Service using, I don't know, whatever electronic means that you were in connection with the Secret Service with?
I probably could have emailed it to them.
Email, okay.
However, the text message to...
All right, but not exactly
police
the
sergeant.
emergency scenario that this entails. You see a man with, on a roof with a gun, a potential threat to the former president. You don't want to send an email. You want to let him know immediately, right?
Correct. And we did have a phone list for the different agents. However, I'd already been speaking with the sergeant in the command center for different things, and it was significantly easier and faster just to send it straight to him.
All right, is it fair to say that this sort of emergency communications on that day hadn't been worked out in advance? Is that fair?
Yes.
All right, so this was sort of making it up as you go along on that day, not in a critical way, but you're just doing what you need to do to communicate with each other under the circumstances and under the time constraints that you had.
Yes.
All right. And I think clearly, Mr. Sullivan, you'd say that that approach to communications is unacceptable under any Secret Service protection scenario. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
fair?
It's absolutely unacceptable.
All right. Couple quick questions to you all. One of the things about resources, and Mr. Sullivan, I know you've talked about how thin Secret Service is stretched, and I share that view. In fact, Congress passed additional appropriations to help address that. My immediate concern, though, is to get more agents up and running. Hiring new agents, as you pointed out, it takes years for a new agent to be prepared and trained to actually step into the role of protection for the president or other senior officials. Is that fair?
Yes, once an agent is hired, it does take years, literally years, to get them up to.
Building your online business? Go to Wix.com and set up your store on a single integrated platform. Add products, showcase them dynamically, and seamlessly track your inventory. Accept multiple secure payments, and design your storefront down to the very last detail. Get all the tools you need. Drive more sales with customizable gift cards and flexible product subscriptions. Retain customers with a point-based loyalty program, email automations, and reach millions with sales channel integrations. Complete your setup with a personalized analytics dashboard. Make smart business decisions and shape the next phase of your business. Build, manage, and grow from one place. Go to Wix and launch your online business today.
Physicality of the role for people on the scene, but for people providing, for example, advanced leadership and guidance and recommendations, they could step into this role immediately. Would that be fair to say?
They could. They also could step into the role of the protective intelligence investigations, which I think is a critical gap right now that needs to be addressed. We need to be able to investigate threats against the president thoroughly and completely.
I appreciate that. And then lastly, let me end on this with respect to the site selection piece. I think, Lieutenant Harold, you testified that there had been a rally, I guess, in 2020 at the airport in the Butler area?
That's correct.
And that was, in your view, a safer site because it was totally...
It was an active airport, so it was fenced in and restricted. So the entire airport is surrounded by a fence, so it would prevent a lot of unnecessary foot traffic or people driving their cars through. There's multiple entrances to the farm show. There's a back gate, there's a front gate. You can come through the hangars off the airport side. So there's a lot of areas to be able to access that venue. So looking just at site, the airport's more secured.
And just when I stepped onto the Butler site, I went with Chairman Green the first time, the shots came from, I guess as the former president would have been facing, the shots came from the AGR building on the right. But I noticed that there was, I don't know, maybe 10 buildings on the left side of the stage as well, including some kind of rodeo stage or something along those lines. Is there other buildings up there?
There were other buildings on site, and I believe that ESU had members in those, I guess it's the grandstand it's called, at the farm show. So there was LE in those buildings.
And there was also a water tower there too, right?
Yes.
Okay. So from the standpoint of ease of protection, putting protection detail in place, Mr. Sullivan, would it be easier if the fewer rooftops you have, the fewer sites that would provide a possible shooting venue for a sniper or an assailant in this instance? Is it easier for the Secret Service and safer for the people, not just the candidate, but obviously, as we saw, the deadly consequences on that day, spectators who come to watch? Is it safer to have it maybe at the airport scenario as opposed to the field?
Well, Mr. Ivey, the safest place to have a rally is indoors, where you don't have the long-range threat problem. If the Secret Service were in decisions-making for the campaign sites, we would always recommend it be indoors, any rally.
Fair enough. And then last point, Mr. Chairman, with respect to that, I know we're not on Florida yet, but I will say this, on the site selection piece, and certainly candidates, and I've been one myself, have a right to rest and relaxation. That golf course is a tough venue to provide the type of protection that we're talking about because of the size of it, the access of the roads all the way around it. They're all public access, limited fencing, high, bushes and things alike. Maybe not the best. Maybe there are golf courses that are on military bases, for example, that would be safer, sort of along the lines of how the airport's safer than the fairgrounds. So I hope we can figure out a way for, as we move forward with these, especially for a rest and relaxation scenario as opposed to a campaign scenario where there's a First Amendment effort to allow a candidate to reach voters or spectators. I think that's the highest priority. Make it best, candidates should be able to pick whatever they want on that scenario, but maybe the R&R is a different scenario. But with that, I yield back, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of you for your service.
I thank the gentleman. Now recognizes a representative from Louisiana, Mr. Higgins, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, I'm going to be moving fast. And, Mr. Chairman, let me assure you, we're going to get to the bottom of everything that happened on J13. We're going to determine what happened, when, precisely, the timeline, what went right, what went wrong, where were their failures, where was their heroic action. We're going to thoroughly and calmly investigate the entire incident, the attempted assassination of former President Trump, and we're going to provide an excellent report to the American people in December. So we're in the middle of this thing right now, and I have to cover a lot of territory in a very few minutes. Commander Lenz, you're the commander of the entire tactical unit for Butler County. That's a multiple agency unit that's assembled across the county, and you're in command. I just want to clarify that. Did you command and supervise the drone team on the morning of J13 to observe and sanitize and clear the entire property, including the water tower?
We had a private company that offered to fly a drone.
They were under your command?
Correct. Yeah,
Thank
under
you.
my, yep.
And was that sophisticated drone equipment? Or?
As far as I understand it, yes.
Yes, sir. Did you post 2 patrol response units at the water tower for J13?
I did not. I had no actual decision-making as far as the planning goes for where
So
the perimeter people.
was it your understanding that there were 2 patrol response units parked in the vicinity of the water tower on J13?
I do believe at some point there were.
Okay, that's what we're trying to get to. And was the water tower ladder, which is about 25 feet high, was it ever lowered that day?
No.
Thank you very much. Regarding radio communications, in the pre-mission briefing, you were involved extensively in that in the couple of weeks prior to J13. That's my understanding.
Yes.
Thank you. Regarding radio communications with the visiting federal agencies with jurisdictional authority to protect the former president, the Secret Service, did Butler County ESU, your unit, provide particular radios for the Secret Service or set aside radios for the Secret Service?
We did.
You did. Did you personally call the Secret Service counter sniper teams and remind them to pick up their particular radios on the morning of J13?
So I had spoken to them at the walkthrough and offered the radios.
That was on Thursday.
Correct. And then the day of the rally, our sniper team leader, when they did their face-to-face, he reminded them that the radios.
Yes. Did they ever pick up those radios?
They did not.
And so those 2 counter sniper teams for the Secret Service were posted up en route. There was a northern counter sniper team, which ultimately did not take a shot on Crooks because their line of sight was blocked by a couple of trees. I believe in the southern counter sniper team, which ultimately did fire the killing shot at Crooks, they were up on roofs by themselves, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, would have been helpful. You said it was absolutely unacceptable for there to not be direct radio communications. Would it have been helpful for the Secret Service to pick up the radios that the Butler County ESU had provided for them and reminded them to pick up?
Absolutely.
Especially up on a roof, being isolated as these counter sniper teams are.
Yes.
They didn't have that radio communication.
No, would have been
Let me
helpful.
clarify that the local Butler County ESU, in command of all the local forces assisting Secret Service that day, attempted to deliver radio communication to the counter sniper teams. My goodness, time rolls quickly. I'd like to jump into shot number 9. Shot number 9, during the interviews with the Secret Service and FBI, they commonly step over shot number 9. They say Crooks fired 8 rounds, and then the Secret Service fired the killing shot, shot number 10. But there was a shot number 9 fired, was there not, Mr. Lenz?
There was.
Okay, Commander, I'm gonna quote from the transcribed interview of Aaron Zalapone. That's a tactical SWAT officer under your command that took shot number 9. He was deployed. He heard the radio traffic. He saw the commotion. He left his deployed position and ran into a position where he thought he might be able to get a shot on if there was a shooter up on a roof, somebody on a roof. He said seconds after that is whenever the first 3 shots were fired. So I hear the first 3, crack, crack, crack. And at this point, I'm like, okay, where we at here? I look up, that's when I see Crooks. I got his head, his shoulders. I can see a rifle. At that point, I hear another crack. That's when I start pulling my weapon up. He gets 3 off. As I'm getting my target acquired, I'm getting my red dot up. I can see the gas emit from his barrel, his muzzle. Then right after that, I hear the snap of his 5th shot go off. Then immediately after that, I press one off, and that's when he immediately goes down. When I say goes down, it wasn't like he was ducking to get out of the way. I mean, I know I hit him. Like, there's no doubt about it. He goes down. He kind of jerks to the right, and then he slumps over slowly, and then kind of slowly rolls backward out of my field of view. So at that point, I did not have a second shot. At that point, he tries to recover. Seconds after that, the Secret Service, from a different vantage point, a higher vantage point, takes the killing shot. So my final question, if I may, to the doctor. Are you here with us, Doctor?
Yes, I
Dr.
am.
Goldschmidt. You stated, sir, and I know you're doing your best. You performed the autopsy. I've observed your work. I think it was very professional work, in my opinion. You stated that there was only 1 bullet wound. I accept that you had only 1 observable bullet wound. Are you there, Doctor?
Yes, I am.
Thank
Yes,
you
I
very
am.
much. Could the injuries on Crook's shoulders have been caused by a combined impact of Butler County ESU shot number 9 striking somewhere in the vicinity of the buttstock of Crook's rifle and some fragmenting from that impact? Could the injuries on Crook's shoulders have been caused by a combination of shot number 9 and shot number 10? Is that possible?
No, I don't believe so.
You don't believe it's possible. Does that mean it's possible?
No, it's not possible.
It's not possible. So I respect your testimony, but how would you determine if you removed only 1 fragment of a bullet? The FBI recovered no other bullets, that's our understanding, no other projectiles other than the partial projectile that you recovered from his shoulder. So you don't know where shot number 9 went, did you, Doctor?
Correct. I do
Okay.
not.
So is it not possible, you're saying it's not possible that shot number 9 went all the way through Crooks, and you had no way of knowing that because it was in the same wound that was further affected by shot number 10? You're saying that's not possible?
The body, there was no evidence on the body of that occurrence.
There you go, sir. That's different than impossible. Listen, thank you all for testifying today. Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this first very important hearing. We shall do more, and we shall complete our work professionally. Thank you, sir. I yield.
Yes, sir, thank you, and you were correct. We will continue. Now recognize Ranking Member Crow for his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for calling this really important hearing. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of the witnesses here today. Your testimony was clear, was concise, was candid, and was very helpful for us in our first phase of the investigation to understand what happened, what didn't happen, what should have happened. You all didn't ask for this, and I know none of you wanted to be in this position, but you have handled yourselves professionally, and for that we thank you. I know you are serving your community, our country. We are proud of that service. We thank you for that service, and this task force will continue with this job of giving answers to the American people that they deserve, and also making sure that this incident, an incident like this, never happens again. So thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Look, I want to thank you all for being here. I live with you. We live in the same place. We experienced the same thing. that Saturday. I know how deeply wounded you were after that event, because the first time anybody pointed fingers at anybody, it was at local law enforcement. They didn't do their job. You being here today is a validation of what you did that day, your commitment to that day, and going over and above what you normally would have done. I know a lot of you there were there in 2020 when we did the rally at the Butler Airport. I get that. That time they said there was maybe 50,000 people there. That went off very smoothly, no problem. July 13th was a problem, a huge problem. You guys did everything you were asked to do that day. You stayed your course. You did everything, everything. And I want to thank you for coming here today, that the public can hear what happened that day, and you can answer questions that were very relevant to that. Thank you so much for your commitment. Appreciate it all. Thank you all. Now, without objection, members have 5 days to submit additional materials and written questions for the witnesses to the chair, which will be forwarded to the witnesses. I ask the witnesses to please respond promptly. Now, we'll now pause to allow the witnesses for our second panel to come forward. Thank you. We're going to take about a 10-minute break.
Oh, okay, yeah. Congressman Ivey, just in this brief break, can I just ask, have you heard any answers to
I think we're getting there. I think the Secret Service